Welcome everyone. How are you doing? This is another GEG Mississippi event. Now you are used to watching these and seeing us kind of go over some tools and things, but today I decided to kind of make it a little fancy. We are going to have a showdown, people. You heard me, a showdown battle royale between Schoology and Google Classroom. And with me today, I have Michael Fricano, who will be representing Google Classroom, and Robert Schuetz, who will be representing Schoology. So, gentlemen, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Awesome, awesome. So, before we go, I want you to introduce yourselves to the viewing public. So, Michael, could you tell everyone, introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Michael Fricano. I'm a GEG leader and authorized Google education trainer here in the beautiful island of Oahu, Hawaii. It's bright and sunny outside today. No snow, of course. And I'm a tech integration specialist for a private school here in Hawaii called Iolani School. And I'm here to represent Google Classroom.
Nice. Robert?
Thank you. Robert Schuetz. I'm a technology coordinator at Palatine High School. I'm in Palatine, Illinois. It is bright and sunny today, but not quite as warm as Hawaii. Have some background as a Schoology ambassador. Enthusiastic about the product. I'll have to admit during this showdown I am not familiar with Google Classroom, so I'm using this not only as a showdown but as a learning experience.
Oh yeah, me too. I have absolutely no experience with Schoology, so I'll be learning from you as well.
Excellent. So now the gentlemen have introduced themselves. So let's get ready to rumble. First question, round one. What kind of learning experiences can be created? Further, what sort of resources can be delivered via your learning management system?
You want to take it first, Robert?
I will do that. Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Dr. Will. Good question, by the way. We are in our third year of utilization of Schoology, second as an enterprise system. We expanded from 2 to 35 to over 16,000 users in our district, mainly through a grassroots movement that started by offering it for basically using Schoology as a tool to house our professional development. And then from that, our teachers found the value and our administrators found the value of using it for blended learning experiences and self-paced sort of PD experiences. We have 85 to 90% of our classes now use it. We have some flipped teachers who are using it as a tool for flipped lessons, where we have some blended learning experiences going on, as I mentioned, and then we are in the process of developing some completely online courses too. Michael wouldn't be as familiar with this because we had a couple of snow days recently, so some of the value of Schoology really rose to the forefront when we had a couple of days off from school for extreme cold, yet our students were able to stay engaged with the lessons and the activities of the classroom during the 2 days off from school. And so that was nice for us to see as educators that they were still engaging in learning activities even when school was out of session.
All right, Mike?
Well, thanks, Robert. It's very interesting. But yeah, so I'm here to represent Google Classroom. It hasn't been around the block as long as Schoology has. It's fairly new, just released officially back in August of last year. So it's been around for maybe about half a school year. And I really think that what it basically does is to me, it's the ultimate tool for teachers who want to truly go the route of a paperless classroom. Makes it really easy and convenient to manage that workflow process for homework, class assignments, projects that can all be digital, and it allows for that back and forth delivery of content and assignment materials that the teacher needs the students to have access to. And because it's Google Classroom, it's deeply integrated into Drive. So it allows the teacher and the students to access Drive files like Google Docs, Sheets, and Slides, and it adds that level of collaboration and communication that's offered through those through Drive, and of course it also offers those communication functions that the teacher can use between themselves and the student, and also communication for peer-to-peer, that sort of thing. And Classroom, I think it kind of tears down the walls of the classroom by allowing the teacher and the student to access classroom content on multiple devices. They just came out with an iPad app a couple of weeks ago, which makes it very easy for students to access content on the go, even if they're not in the classroom. And we don't have snow days here in Hawaii. We've had a wind day every now and then, but I've seen plenty of examples on Twitter of teachers who have continued to use Classroom during those snow days as well. So it does work great for those kinds of situations as well. And because it's connected to Drive, it allows for that online storage, and it works great with Google Files, but because you can store practically anything in your Drive, especially for Google Apps for Education, because we now have unlimited storage in our Drive, we can practically store any kind of file we want, and those files can be shared with students, and they can be accessed. So it's not just Drive files. You can use Microsoft Office files, iWorks and iLife files like iMovies and Keynotes and Pages files, images, videos, you name it. Whatever you need to use with your students, those things can be delivered through Classroom.
Okay. So, what are some of the features that teachers and administrators can expect to have, and how do they function in creating a all-around rewarding learning experience for students?
Go ahead, Robert.
Okay. Features that they can expect to have. Our teachers utilize a discussion board quite a bit. If not outside class time, then they can also utilize that as a sort of a back channel engagement activity during class time. There is a badging system that more of our teachers are starting to use, along with a mastery learning component. So assignments and assessment items can be tagged to standards, and then we have more of our teachers showing interest in standard-based type grading, and in which case they're using badges as a level up mechanism, so they're adding a gamification component to it. We have a separate student information system. There is a grade book and an attendance component to it, but our teachers do not use it. That we have another product that we use for that. We are also a Google Apps for Education district, and Google Drive syncs seamlessly with Schoology, which makes it real nice, because then we can open up Google Drive resources within the Schoology app. We're also one-to-one with iPads, which makes it kind of nice, because Schoology's app has really grown in leaps and bounds here in the last year, so that there's a lot more functionality with Google Drive and with various types of media that can be brought into assignments. What I really appreciate about Schoology is that they listen to educators and they're responsive to the needs. They've recognized how challenging it is to try and bring a worksheet type of learning into a more, something on the augmentation replacement end of the SAMR model. So we're seeing more multimedia types of elements going into not only assignments, but what the students are submitting as work. So, and then within the last couple of weeks, Schoology's released for the enterprise users a video conferencing component that I haven't messed around with yet, but I'm very intrigued by. And as well as one more thing that I'm very interested in is a digital portfolio component, which I understand is supposed to be released soon. So I'm eager to see how that looks and get started using that with our teachers and students.
Awesome. Michael?
Yeah, cool. So some features that Classroom offers. One, it's Classroom. It's all web-based, so it can be accessed from a computer, a laptop, a tablet, or a phone. And again, they just came out with an iPad app. It's still fairly new. It doesn't have complete functionality just yet, but they're constantly adding new things to it. So that's very convenient. It doesn't require like a standalone application or anything like that. I think one of the biggest, the best functions that always gets the oohs and ahs from teachers when I show Classroom to them is, in the past, if as a teacher, if you're a heavy Drive user, you would have to manually create those folders, create those files that you want your students to access to. You'd have to teach your students how to make copies and name things correctly and put those things in the correct places, and that would always just be a mess and chaotic. So what Classroom does is it manages that whole process automatically for the teacher. So as soon as a teacher and students become a part of a classroom, the folders are automatically generated for them in Drive. They're all named correctly. Any files or materials that the teacher gives to the students via Classroom is automatically organized into those folders, and they're automatically named with the student's name attached to them, so the teacher knows whose file is whose. So all of that is taken care of on the back end without the teacher or the students having to worry about that whole management and making sure things are in place. So that solves a lot of the issues that I've seen teachers have in the past when they're using Drive. And of course, using Drive, you have those collaboration features and those communication features like suggesting and commenting and being able to work on a document with multiple people in real time. So that offers a huge benefit. And there is a grading feature built into Classroom. Right now it's based on a point scale up to 100 points, but the teacher can set how many points they want an assignment to be worth. And when students turn in their work, the teacher can give those students a grade. And that's all kept in Classroom, and then once all of the grading is complete, the teacher has the option to download a spreadsheet with all of the students' names and all of the grades that they've received so far. And then the teacher can take that spreadsheet into whatever grading system they use at their school. In Classroom, there's also a built-in About page, so if there's any materials that the teacher wants students to have constant access to, like a syllabus or a Classroom website, or some kind of assignment sheet, there's a separate place for that built in the Classroom where the teacher can upload those materials so the students can access them whenever they need to. So that's really great. And I think Robert mentioned that Schoology is really good about listening to its users and adding features, and the Classroom team is the same way. Since Classroom's release in August, I think they've made 5 or 6 updates with a handful of new features added every update. So they're really listening, and they always encourage people to provide feedback whenever there's a feature missing that teachers want. And they have the team has said that they literally read every single piece of feedback that they get. And there's a couple of features that teachers ask for most frequently, and they haven't been added yet because I think they're a little more complex to fit into the Classroom system, but they're definitely on their way. So it's really great to have a team that is open and listens to its users.
Okay. Now, as an instructional technologist, I have to look at students' needs, teachers' needs, and weigh all the technology tools and options that are available to me. And the one thing that I have learned is if a tool is too complicated, will take them too long to learn, you're going to have a tougher time with a certain segment of teachers really adopting the tool to use it. With that in mind, how easy is it to use the learning systems you are representing today. How easy is it to use, and what kind of learning curve is involved with teachers and administrators? Robert?
Thanks, Dr. Well, another good question. And yes, I'm wear a similar hat to you. I'm the technology coordinator here. So implementation of new products, there's always a concern, oh, we're going to learn something new, and then how long before we have to learn the next new thing that comes along. And so making sure that there's some stability and some long-term investment in it, that it's going to do something and make their practice more efficient and effective. To get back to your question more pointedly, you can, with our PD sessions, our teachers are able to set up and start using a class within one class period. So within an hour, they can have their students in, and they can start creating assignments and assessments, posting announcements on the discussion boards and updates. I think part of the simplicity behind it is that it has a Facebook sort of look and feel to it. So there's some familiarity with at least where the layout is, and so this will shorten the learning curve just a bit as far as knowing where things are across the toolbars and whatnot. So our teachers appreciate the simplicity of getting started, and then those that want to go beyond, it's one or two clicks until they can get into things like gamifying their class and setting up completion rules, and they can go make it as intricate as they want to.
Okay. Michael?
Cool. Yeah, so I think a classroom in itself it's also very easy to set up. I think it's a lot easier to train a teacher on Classroom than it is to train them on how to use Drive and how to set up the folders and all that. As I mentioned earlier, that was kind of very complex and difficult for a lot of teachers to handle in the past, and so Classroom was that solution to make that process more efficient and easier to handle. So even though Classroom is deeply integrated in Drive, you could use Classroom all on its own and not have to worry about accessing things via the Drive, because it's all kind of done automatically and on the back end. So that makes it a lot easier for teachers to handle, because it can all just be done in Classroom, and it's all pretty much automatic. I guess it would be beneficial if teachers and students have some basic understanding of how Drive works, as far as the sharing permissions and how to use the commenting feature and the suggesting feature, and what it's like to collaborate on a document in real time. Because I think for people who do that for the first time and have a group of people all typing into one document, it could seem kind of chaotic. So having some understanding of how those features work as well is very beneficial. But in general, Classroom is pretty easy for the teacher who just wants a digital way of creating assignments and having students turn in their work, all online. That can be very easy to set up. And it could also be as complex as a teacher wants, because Classroom itself is just a workflow management system, and there's not those the tools like using quizzes and things like that. Can be done with other Google apps, which can then be pulled into Classroom. So they don't really have those features kind of built into Classroom just yet. You kind of have to go out and create things separately from Classroom and then use them within. But you can use add-ons like Doctopus and Flubaroo and Autocrat and SuperQuiz. Those things are great if you want to get a little more complex and being a little bit more organized and conducting quizzes and things like that.
Okay. So whether you want to embrace it or even sort of accept it as reality, we live in a data-driven society. And so when administrators in particular are saying, okay, we need tools that will be able to provide our teachers and to some degree parents data on their child's progress beyond, let's say, grades. What data is provided by each of your platforms?
Okay, that's another great question. Gonna jump to screen sharing here and see if I can show you firsthand what some of this might look like. Uh, okay, how's that look to you guys?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so right now I'm on the Schoology home page, and we have a set of system analytics that I'm clicking on now. School analytics. So from this, I can get, and it's generating a report, so I can see usage, peak times, and how many users in a graphic sense, and then who's using it and at what time. And I can break that down then to just specific users. So if there's, whether it's a parent that has a question or administrator or teacher on when is this student logging in, how long have they logged in, and then I can export that as a report. So some helpful systematic types of analytics that are available. If I go into a course, for instance, this is a course that I share, and so recently we did an assessment for digital citizenship. So I can go in to Mastery Learning and then see progress towards standards. So I can, there was a seven item assessment that shows how many times the assessment has been taken, and then if they, the percent of items that mastery was achieved on. The other thing as far as data goes is so it can be broken down by student. I can also, what's really nice about Schoology is our parents can be provided a code so they can join Schoology as a viewer to their son or daughter's progress in the class. So they will see the same analytics that their son or daughter would see. So I can view the course as either the student or their parents. Back to your question about analytics and data. Once again, we don't use the attendance or the gradebook feature, but through analytics we can monitor usage and see when the peak times are. There's another nice feature that teachers have access to, that they can load balance assignment. They can click on a student's name and see when assignments are due or when tests are coming up, and then choose alternative dates for due dates and things of that nature. So yeah, there's a pretty robust collection of analytics that can be accessed not only at the teacher level but at the administrator level.
Okay. Michael?
Yeah, there's unfortunately there's nothing as there's not really any analytics or anything built into Classroom just yet. As I mentioned earlier, teachers can assign grades to assignments in Classroom, and those grades could then be downloaded as a spreadsheet, and the teacher can manipulate that data the way that they choose to. So that feature is built in, but the grading system is built on a 100-point scale, and I know a lot of schools don't always grade on that kind of system, so you have to decide if that's an option you want to choose. You can always set an assignment not to be graded, and then you can always grade that assignment outside of Classroom with whatever method you use. If a teacher opts to using forms for quizzes and assessments and things like that, there are add-ons built into those forms like Super Quiz and Flubaroo that can break down the data even further into what question was answered incorrectly the most, and how many students got this question correct, and that kind of thing. But that's not part of Classroom. That's part of Forms and Spreadsheets, which is a separate app, but you can use it as part of Classroom.
Okay. So we happen, like Robert District, we have adopted Schoology as our sort of district LMS. We pay for the enterprise version, though we do have two classrooms who are piloting Google Classroom now with great success on for both teachers. So, and can see, where each can be highly successful with different grade levels, different teachers, different subject areas, etc. But from your experience, either as uh, an instructional technologist, tech coordinator, classroom teacher, or from what you are seeing with colleagues, what would you say is your audience? Is there an ideal subject area, or grade level that is best suited for your platform?
Um, that's another good question. Um, I work in a high school district, so we're seeing great success in using Schoology. As I said, 3 years ago, it was me and another counterpart that were investigating different LMS systems and rolled it out to some of our teachers as part of professional learning. And then from there, it grew organically into the thousands of users that we have now. As far as target audience, as I mentioned, it's based on our recent surveys. We saw 90% of our students during snow days log into Schoology and stay engaged with the learning away from school time. So our audience is staying connected even when school's not in session. So I think that's a huge plus. We're seeing more parents sign in and create Schoology accounts so they can monitor their son or daughter's progress in school, and in some cases get engaged with the lessons that are going on, sort of a bring in an expert sort of thing. They can participate in discussion boards and whatnot. My wife is a second grade teacher, and so she's been sort of playing around with using Schoology with second graders. And interesting that you brought this question up, because that was a natural tie-in. Well, we see a fit here with your older students. Does it also lend itself to younger students? And so she's seeing terrific results from that, as far as different ways of getting sort of that protective, that walled garden of getting the students involved with digital media. So rather than unleashing them into the Twitter sphere or someplace that's not protected, they create the accounts and they have that walled garden within the classroom where they can experience and learn a little bit more about digital literacy and digital citizenship. What I'm really pleased about is the sense of community from Schoology, that there's different professional groups, learning groups that I check in with regularly when I have questions, or I see somebody else has a question about Schoology, and we can connect with each other right away and sort of have this chat. So yeah, our primary target audience is our secondary students, but our coaches, we have sponsors that use Schoology groups to keep communication going with their teams and their clubs. And so is there an ideal age? I don't think there is. I think there's something in it for everybody. It just depends on how they want to utilize the tool.
Yeah, I think the same could be said for Classroom too. I mean, I've seen examples. It could be used from K to up to college. I've seen examples of teachers on Twitter talking about how they're using it with their kindergarten students. Maybe not as elaborate as you would with a college group or a high school group, but it's definitely possible. And I think it really just depends on the teacher's technical skill and their understanding of the technology, as well as how well they can train their students to use it. Obviously, a teacher who is more comfortable with the technology and has more technical training and skill could really put it to use with practically any grade level. So it's definitely possible. I think it just depends on comfort level and how much skill you have in using technology.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you one final question.
Hey, this wasn't on the list of questions, Will.
Yeah, I know. One final question.
That's a bonus.
What is your final selling point to those who are going to watch this podcast about why they should use Google Classroom or Schoology?
Um, it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. You started off this discussion with what types of learning experiences, what types of experiences do we want for our end users. So I've learned quite a bit from listening to Michael today, and I'm a big fan of all the Google products. So I'm intrigued by seeing what Classroom could do. And as a workflow solution, I've heard great things about it. I think from the vantage point that I have, if you're interested in more classroom organizational type tools, something other than just workflow, if it is a gradebook component, if it is targeting learning standards, if it is taking attendance and things of that nature, then I think there's more options available to you. We do have a number of teachers heavily invested in Google products, and so they're using both Schoology and Google Drive and Google Apps in conjunction with each other to create a fantastic workflow solution. But I guess without showing too much of my bias, I think if you want a more full-featured type of classroom management system, then Schoology is ready-made. And as I mentioned before, I think having the folks at Schoology be so responsive to the needs of educators and connected learning that I think that's a huge selling point. But I don't want to look at too much my bias show, because I'm smiling right now because I think both are fantastic products.
Yeah, I think so too. It's Classroom. It's very new, and obviously it doesn't stack up to other learning management systems. And in my opinion, Classroom really isn't a learning management system when compared to Schoology or Haiku or those other things. It's really, in my opinion, it's really a WMS. It's a workflow management system. And that's kind of the issue I think that the Google Apps team were trying to resolve with schools is how can we create a product that makes the process of using Drive easier for teachers and students, and Classroom answers that. It doesn't have all of those other features, like it doesn't really have a full-featured gradebook or the option for parents to log in and access student work. So those things aren't available in Classroom because it's not really a learning management system as much as Schoology is. It's more of a workflow management system. But it's still brand new, and the Classroom team has promised that it will over time become a much more full-featured product. And dare I say, Google Apps and Classroom is free compared to other products. So that definitely makes it much more usable for schools because of that. But it doesn't offer all of the same features that things like Schoology does. So just got to be aware of that and determine what your needs are for you and your students.
Excellent, excellent. So today, people, I know we call this a battle and a showdown, but there is no loser. The real winners are the students and those great teachers who are using both systems to further engage, inspire, and empower their students. And so for those of you who are more interested in learning more about these tools, when you go to the blog, to my blog, iamdrwheel.com, you'll be able to see how to get in contact with Michael, how to get in contact with Robert, and go ahead and ask them some additional questions. So thank you, everyone, for watching. I hope this was worth your time this Saturday. And I thank you, Michael and Robert, for being guests.
Thanks for inviting us.
Yep, thank you for including us in the learning. This was terrific.
Awesome, awesome, and thank you. And I welcome you all to check out another GEG Mississippi Google Hangout event. That's it, people.
Aloha.
Have a good day.